Talk to Animals. My name is Shannon Cutts. I'm an animal intuitive and sensitive and animal communicator and Reiki master practitioner with animallovelanguages.com. This is Pearl Cutts, my ever-present 23 years young feathered sidekick. It is his nap time when we're recording, and so he is very anxious for us to get to it. He never misses an episode, but a lot of times he sleeps through them depending on when we're recording. And of course, here at Let's Talk to Animals, first of all, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for choosing to listen to a podcast or watch a vlogcast about animal communication versus, 5 ways to stay fit at 50 or, how to make the perfect masala chai. We know there's tons of podcasts and vlogcasts out there for you to listen to. And we're really appreciative of your heart for animals. Here we talk about everything animal communication. What is it? How woo is it? How does it work? Can you do it? What are some different modalities that are complementary with animal communication to give the animals and the companion animals and the wild animals we love the most complete and balancing and energizing and healing quality of life that we as human animals can possibly offer. And so today I've invited Ferris Jay to be a part of Let's Talk to Animals. Ferris, I came across your website. Welcome, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
So happy to have you. I came across your website. I'm a huge proponent of EFT tapping for humans, human animals, and for non-human animals. And so I enrolled in your introductory, your free webinar series, and was just learning a little bit more and fine-tuning what I know about EFT and discovering along the way that this is something that you've really taken a deep dive into, and it's a huge part. In fact, it's just, I know you do a lot of different things and we'll talk about that, but it's a huge part of the work that you do with animals and with their people. And it can have a really, just speaking from somebody who has done EFT tapping with myself for many, I'm the one that's like, okay, which meridian would be the least obvious when I'm walking around the park? Can I just do a little ape imitation so I'm a huge supporter and am often surprised by how many people don't know what it is, which is why I wanted to bring you into season, that's the word I'm looking for, season 2 of our show, because we're starting to bring in these complementary modalities. We're starting to look at whole pet quality of life and really building a team, just like we human animals often need a team. We need somebody for body work, we need someone for mind work, we need someone to help balance our emotions, we need tools and strategies. Our pets need the same thing, especially because they're living in our complicated worlds. Mm-hmm. So, I'd like to stop talking now and invite you to, because of course, when you and I were chatting a little bit before we were kind of planning out what we would talk about today, we talked about how, animal communication is a facet of what you do and how it often actually emerges as you're doing your EFT sessions and the energy work. So I would love, because we have a lot of newbies and a lot of practitioners listening to this particular podcast, I'd love if you would just take us back, just kind of share how you discovered the path that you're on and how you started to kind of meld all of these different modalities together to be able to help animals and people in such a unique way.
Okay, thank you. I'd love to.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, animals have always been my friends, always been my go-to. Nature and animals, they were my companions all the way through. And I suppose I've always had such deep love and appreciation for them. And I've always wanted to help my own. For many years, when I was younger and I was in college, I would keep pet rats, because you weren't meant to have dogs or cats. So I would I'd have a couple of little rats and sneak them in. And they were such good fun and they were such sweet little creatures. And I suppose I got into energy healing quite early on as well, in my early 20s. And of course, my companion animals, they were the ones really I did it for, because I wanted to be able to help them when they weren't feeling good. And I was on my own path of discovering holistic health from my late teens as well. So it all dovetailed into one. As I did Reiki for me, you know, the rats would come up and nuzzle me and go, oh, they want some, brilliant. And from working with them, I was curious about communicating with them. When I discovered animal communication, it's like, of course, we want to be able to connect with them and speak with them. So I learned that, and I had such great fun with that, with deepening the communication. And I was on my own journey. I went to healing school. I did the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, a 4-year deep dive. So I did that alongside my animal communication. And at that time, I worked a lot with animals, and the animal companion was always my client. And there were times when I'd want to help the person, and I didn't want to get too woo with the person. I didn't want to tell them what to do with their chakras or this and that, because I didn't know quite how open. I know they really wanted to help their animal companion, but I didn't want to push it with them. So for a while, it was strange, because the animal was my client, and it's like, what do I do with the person? And even when working with people, I had a lady who had a really large dog, and she was so scared of him getting old because she was on her own. And when his legs would start to get weak, if he wasn't able to move, she wouldn't have been able to pick him up. And I remember I was working with her for her, not actually for him at the time, but I saw her worry so much about him. And at the time, I was mainly doing hands-on healing or distance energy healing. And she was, I think, part of set the seed for that. Because I looked at her and I thought, she's worried for so long, and I know that's going to affect her relationship with the animal. But I didn't really know what to do with it until I discovered the EFT tapping. And I discovered it first for myself. For a very stressful situation. I'd encountered it a little bit before, and I actually didn't do that much. And I had a really big stressful situation, and I sat with it, and I was uncomfortable, and I did other things. And as I sat one day going, I really need to know what to do with this, I actually heard there's a setup phrase in EFT tapping, and I actually heard it in my head. I was like, I remember that. That's that strange tapping thing. So I went back to it and I used it. And I had an issue with planning. I was building a house, and there was something wrong with the planning, and it took basically 1.5 years. And it was a really stressful time, but I used the tapping the whole time throughout that for me. And anything I use with me, I share with my clients. And it was my bridge. It really was the bridge between the animal work, where I do the communication and healing, and by that stage they were merging anyway. I just tune in and I go wherever I needed to go, and that's how it worked really well for me. But it was a bridge with the people, and it was like that piece in the jigsaw. I was like, oh, I've got it. This is how I can get the people on board, and this is how we can become a team. They can become a team. That it empowers the person to be able to do things for the animal. But to me, what I loved about it was it's kind of like a Trojan horse, because the person has to start with how they're feeling about their animal. So they have to come in and play. They have to be involved. And so it's a nice stealth way of getting people to work on themselves.
Aren't our animals very creative about finding ways to introduce the concept, the idea that maybe, hey, you, my person, maybe you could use a little healing too. Maybe you could use a little emotional tune-up too. Maybe a little mental recalibration too. And for those of you who are listening today or watching, and you have no idea what EFT tapping is, this thought just occurred to me that you don't even know what it is. Well, first of all, bless you for sticking with us. Second of all, this particular podcast is not really designed to go into the mechanics of it, but what I want you to do is head over to ferrisjay.com, and that's FERRISJAY.com. Sign up for the free introductory tapping webinar series, and you can learn about it. And I think you're already kind of getting the vibe that this is great for people. It's great for animals, and it's great to navigate tough situations. And it's also great to express love, gratitude, and appreciation. And Ferris, you're the only one that I've ever encountered who uses EFT for this purpose. So I'd love if you kind of just a PS to your story, like how did you kind of discover that? Because I just watched your most recent video on your YouTube channel and was like, oh wow, like I always had perceived it as a way to move through crises or difficult, but here's a completely different application that feels really good. So I'd love it if you share a little bit about that as well.
So I'll give a little bit of background about EFT in a nutshell, the super, super short version. So with EFT tapping, it stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and we tap on meridian points. These are the meridian points we use in Chinese acupuncture or acupressure. Some people call it acupressure without the needles because we are working on points. But it's very different. Acupressure is quite general. Like there's a point here, that's good for anxiety. There's a point under here, can be good for sinuses. But with the tapping, we do two things. We stimulate these points with the tapping, but we're also focusing on the issue. Now, like you said, traditionally, we focus on the negative intensity. If it's a trauma, people use it. War veterans have used it. It's used for weight loss, for sports performance, because we're focusing on that thing that gets us stuck or gets in our way or pushes our buttons. And as we focus on it and we tap through these points, we clear that blockage, and it goes very deep and very specific because we're thinking about it. It goes right to wherever that is in our energy system, and it starts to dissolve it. So our energy can flow clearly, so we can even think back to a traumatic memory and we're just not bothered by it anymore. It's not pushing our buttons anymore. So that's the background of how EFT was traditionally used. Now, I was aware of people using it differently as well. And it's something I played with because I believe in the power of positivity as well. I think when we're clearing out negative, we always want to know where we're going. We want to go to what we want, what we desire, how we want to feel. And that's always been part of my journey with the tapping, is we're not just clearing out this for the sake of it. It's so we can have this clear path to go where we want to be. And that's where things like the appreciation tapping come in. You can just tap on positives. I find though, if we've stuff underneath it that, you know, you could say an affirmation, you know, I am healthy, I am rich, I am whatever. But if we've stuff underneath it, our mind's going, yeah, but no, but nah. You know, that's what the tapping clears out. So we get to a place where we've neutralized that, and we can actually start to believe and move forward towards what we want. And for me, it was so interesting you talk about the appreciation, because that is a post I've just written on that, and I've shared that video. It is on YouTube. I've shared it with so many clients because I know when things are challenging with our animal companions, it's so hard. I work a lot with aging animals, and they're less mobile, and they're people going, they can't do what they used to do, and it's not the same, and they see the decline and they worry about the decline. But if I can get them to be in the moment and to celebrate what is going well, that they still light up when they see their dinner, they still want belly rubs, they still, you know, there's always those things that they still have. And I watched it with my Sally dog as she aged, and I was very determined to do that, what I call celebration tapping, that even if her legs aren't as good and she couldn't always jump up on the sofa, or she'd get a bit confused and think her dinner was at a different time, or all these different things, that I could still see, you know, she wants her belly rub. She's happy to see us. She's this. And by acknowledging that, and the tapping is a great way to really wire it into our system. It benefits us because you feel good when you feel good and you think what's going well in your life. B, they pick it up, they get the resonance. So it's healing for them, it helps them. And they pick up when we're really worried about them. They sense it. And even if we're sometimes just saying words, like say an animal's pre-surgery and we're going, it's okay, it's okay. And we're going, I'm really worried, I'm really worried. They're picking up both and it's confusing. But if we're in that place of pure appreciation, they pick that up, they relax and they feel it. And it's like they can tune more into it. And it helps the bonding. We just gets everything closer. And sometimes people even get the little insights because they relax and they just get into that positive space where it can really help people reconnect with their pets when they've been in fear. If they can move to being realistic still, there's issues to deal with, and there's this that's going really well, it just grounds things more positively and it makes a huge difference to moving forward with treatment plans or whatever else, that they have that balance. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I've worked with a number of animal clients recently. In fact, I was talking with a client last week who has just adopted a dog who has a congenital issue with one eye. And so the eye is smaller than normal and she can't really see out of it. And you know, so the client was my human client was concerned about, you know, is this bothersome? Does she need to take action, et cetera? And so when I tuned in with the dog said, you know, I don't even think about it. I'm so much more than this one little tiny body part. And I was so moved by that because the gratitude puts everything else that's going on that represents snapshots in time back into a bigger picture perspective. And gratitude, I'm starting to believe that gratitude is kind of like the secret sauce and the miracle cure that we've all been looking for. It's the fountain of youth. It's the resilience that we need to get through since I was born, I feel like people around me who are older than me have been saying, "Oh, this is the worst time ever." So it kind of follows us, and yet somehow I feel the older I get, like the better my life gets, and the better I get, and things are sloughing off, and a lot of that has had to do with EFT tapping to the point where now I'm more able to access my appreciation. I'm more able to access the gratitude. Yes. It's just, I love the picture that you painted of just kind of exhausting the areas of blockages and the stuck energy. And when I first learned about EFT, it was because it was being studied for use with returning combat veterans who were suffering from extreme PTSD. And the researchers at the time weren't quite sure exactly why or how it worked, but they just knew that there was something about pairing the mind, the emotion, and the kinetic energy of the body that was extremely impactful. What makes me so interested in using EFT paired with animal communication is because I've often experienced how animals actually, like, we do our thinking. This is probably going to come out really convoluted, but we do our thinking through our minds, through our thoughts and our words. If we or even notice there's an emotion or a mental picture attached to it, we're doing good. We've probably had some training in animal communication. Right now, I'm actually trying to put a course syllabus together for my students. I'm trying to teach this, and it's incredibly challenging to put it into words because I've gotten quite much more comfortable in the feeling space, and I feel like the animals think in many ways through their emotions and through their body. And so it's like we're trying to, that middle point that that we're trying to kind of bring the two the communication media together. And EFT allows us to kind of enter, and those of you who are watching the vlogcast, I'm doing really cheesy hand motions to try to explaining this. So if you're listening only, you're missing out. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, because of course there's a really powerful animal communication component to the work that you're doing. And I feel that in some ways it must really play out in choosing the statements that you're working with and being able, like, tuning in. Let's say somebody comes to you and says, I have an animal who's aging, and I am sensing there's something in my gut that's telling me that they're in pain, or that they're suffering, or that they're struggling. And in turn, maybe they aren't aware that this is also causing them pain and suffering and struggle. So how do you work with that animal and their human to identify the mental verbal part that's going to be the most impactful and offer the most chances for release? Does that make sense? Because I think that was a really long-winded question.
It does. It makes perfect sense. And what I have found is it's so much in the human mind to overthink and overcomplicate and worry and make things bigger than they are. And the animals, I just so love that they just are. The image that came to mind when you were talking before is one of my cats, Elvie. He had a very severe accident where he had to have one leg and 3/4 of his tail amputated. And I remember seeing him recovering, I think it was less than a week afterwards. And he was in the room, and there was the sun was coming in, and he was sitting in the spot of sunshine. And I just thought, yeah, that's what they do. They're like, here is a spot of sunshine. I'm going to be in my sunshine. I'm a bit sore and things are weird, but I'm going to be in my sunshine. Whereas the people are like, he had this, is he going to recover? Is this going to happen? How much pain is he in? The people, we just, boom, 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 we just get so emotional. And that's why, if you see the video series I have on the website, I always start with the people, because the issue is usually more with the people than it is with the animals. They are so good at going, okay, I have this, it's not great. All right. I'm here, I'm alive, there's food, there's sunshine, we're good. It's, yes, sometimes they're not comfortable, and I won't screw too far into this, but even with death, they are not bothered by death. We are hugely bothered by death. We worry about it for months and months, even years before. And the more I work with them, the more I love that they just are. It's us. There's more work to do with us than with them. Yes, of course, it's physical healing that it all helps. But if we as the people can get out of our own crazy headspace and the worries, everything becomes so much smoother. So I always start with the person. How do you feel about this? What is their reaction? And when we can tap to release whatever it is, anger, worry, fear, we can get them calm. Even that in itself makes a huge difference to the animal's energy, because they're around it, they're picking up on that tension. Even just by clearing that is a good third of the work. And then from there, what I love about the tapping is it's so easy that people can do what I call the first aid tapping for themselves. Whatever emotion they're feeling in the moment, they're just name that emotion, they feel it, they tap through. And then when they're in a clear space, they can also do that kind of tapping for their own pets. If they see that, one's even itching and scratching, they can do some tapping for that discomfort for them. So it can be a really easy level. And then the tapping can also go really, really deep. You can tap through traumatic memories. You can tap through all sorts of things. And another memory's just come up of a horse I worked with that had got his hoof caught in a gate, and it was quite traumatic. They had to wait hours for the vet to come out, and the horse wasn't in good form afterwards. So the person was, can you work with the horse? And when I worked with the horse, I worked on one level doing the tapping and energy work, and then I just kept getting this flipping nausea feeling, and I just kind of said, is that yours? And he's like, that's hers. I was picking up on her nervous trauma. through him. So that was when I was first starting to work on the people as well. I was like, okay, thank you. So we have work to do, lady. We need to for you to let that go. You know, because often they can be so kind and hold stuff for us and do that too.
But they also don't have the option in most cases of getting away from us. Like if we're in the company of our human partner or our human family members and they tick us off, we can, go for a drive, we can go for a walk, we can go to the next room and go take a bath. Our animals are just kind of like, if I'm having, what's really funny is when I'm in a mood, he's in a mood. And he, so I know, yeah, I know, because I'm in a sleeping mood right now. And when I'm calm and when I'm centered, he is calm and centered, and they can mirror us. Like he doesn't really have an opportunity to go anywhere, to get away from. So it feels like sometimes, I've had people come and say, can you fix my animal? I had a woman at an event I was at a couple of weeks ago. She brought her Great Dane up to me and she said, can you fix my dog? He has, and she named the diagnosis that she had kind of flippantly. She was like, I think he has ADD or whatever. And I was like, I'm thinking, my first thought, politeness person, good Southern girl. I'm like, I don't think it's your dog who needs who has the problem, who needs fixing. But what I find so intriguing is that our animals can motivate us to start working on ourselves, because if they've tried everything else and nothing else has worked, and they love it's that bond of unconditional love, it makes us brave. It helps us to understand that, yes, we really are that connected. Sometimes more. I've lost count of the number of clients who have shared that when their pet passed, they lost their best friend, and they've never felt love like this before in their lives. So it feels like EFT really gives the human in the equation a chance to take a walk in their animal's paws or hooves or wings and actually start to tangibly experience what this energetic healing can feel like, and that it is real and it just expands us. Those of you who are listening or watching, you've never experienced EFT tapping. Is it on your bucket list? If not, it should be. It is very easy to learn. There is the first day tapping that you experienced. But I want to ask you a question, because of course here we're talking about tapping. I'm not going to make the assumption that anybody that's listening or watching really understands the finer points of how it works. And so let's say there's somebody that's listening or watching right now and is thinking, well, my animal won't let me tap, or they've been traumatized, or they're resistant to touch, they're resistant to being handled. So, you and I know the answer to that, but I really I invited you because I really want pet parents and people that work with rescued or traumatized animals to understand this is available for you. This is available for your animals. So can you share a little bit about how it works when the animal isn't ready or will never be ready to be tapped on?
And I will explain that 99% of my animal clients and people clients live in different countries and in different continents than me. I very rarely get to in-person meet my clients. So what I advocate is what we call surrogate or proxy tapping, where we tap on ourselves for them. And that is so powerful because, again, it increases the bond between, and there's various ways of doing this. You can tap like you're talking to them. You can even tap as them. There are very gradient ways, but even just, I say, start as a conversation to them. Even though you're feeling sore or whatever, you go on with the tapping that way, that you do a setup phrase and then you tap the points and you can guess the intensity. So I very rarely tap on the animals themselves. It can be, they have really tiny little faces to get these points. And often though, they might like, you know, some cats love the under. Oh yeah, you can just do that all day. Mm-hmm. but usually with my clients, I say do the surrogate or proxy. So you tap on yourself, but intention is the important thing. If you have the intention that you are tapping for them, that energy will go to them. That's the be all and end all of it, really, in my mind. Is intention is how it works, just like how distance healing works. You don't have to be in the same room as somebody. And again, I'm going to go back to the real basics of always tap for yourself first, because if someone wants to tap to help their pet, it's good if they're in that clear, neutral space at very least. At best, they're in the fabulous appreciation space. That's a whole different energy to bring to it. That's what I'd love. They're in that real, pure love space. And that's what I do. I sometimes do online groups, and I get people to go from the heart connection, heart to heart connection. And then we go and we tap for the animals, because that's the space to do it from. So so it's very rarely we actually get the animals and tap on them. It's just not needed, and it's so much easier. And when you tap for you, for them as you can get insight sometimes that way as well. If people do a lot of communication, or they're sensitive, sometimes they feel what's going on with the animal in their body or something, even as they're tapping. So it's really useful in terms of communication to be doing the tapping for them that way.
Yeah, I often include tapping in my animal communication in my Reiki healing sessions with animals and their humans. And I often find that the animals and their people do share certain mindsets, certain emotional I know so delicately. I mean, I know I do, you know, I actually wrote a whole book about it, Pearl, right? How similar we are. Both small and pear-shaped with skinny necks, and our favorite phrase is "don't worry," right? So you know, he would never, Pearl, you know, he weighs 80 grams. He would not tolerate. I tried it once. I was like, let me just see if I can sneak up behind him and tap him on his little feathery head. And he will tolerate that if you're watching right now. But he doesn't understand what I'm doing. And if I don't promptly follow it up by scratching his neck feathers, which he loves, he will bite me. And so our dachshund will tolerate tapping along the spine, which is another good thing to do. Or he definitely loves belly rubs, but it's just a matter of time before he decides that the tapping session is really about dachshund playtime. And so it tends to cut the session short, which is why it is so important to understand that these types of holistic tools are not off limits to you. You may be working with wild animals who've experienced trauma, and you can't safely get anywhere near them. Even if they weren't traumatized, you probably, for your own safety, maybe wouldn't want to. And it's also something that I believe can be useful in for the purposes of breaking down barriers or healing traumas interrelationally, either between species or even within a group of animals. And so there are lots and lots of applications. Of course, for the sake of time, we can't delve into everything that I want to ask you about, but I would love to ask, you know, because we've got a lot of folks who are aspiring. And one reason that Let's Talk to Animals was started in the first place is because you know, we live in such a scarcity-minded, competitive world where we're like, oh my God, look at how many animal communicators are out there. Oh my God, look at how many energy workers are out there. You know, I'm late to the party. There's no room for me. There aren't enough clients. And I look around at all the animals that are waiting for healing, that are waiting for one human being to notice that they have something to say and that we're capable of hearing them and having. So it's like, if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking that, there's room for you. And in fact, you're being called. At some level, there's on some level of your being, your energetic, your soul level bucket list, there's something going on. There's something percolating for you. And there is a place for you, no matter how many animal communicators and energy and light workers in this that we'll ever have in this world, it still will not ever be enough to meet the need. And the number of animals who just want to have a conversation, they want to add that to their bucket list. They want to have a conversation with a human animal and feel, maybe for the first time ever in their lives, how much there are lots of us who really do care, who really do want to make, you don't have to hang out a shingle and be professional in order to make a difference. And so I'd love it if you would share a little bit about, for somebody who's listening, who's like, yeah, I would really love to learn this. I would love to do this. Do they study? Do they come and study with you? Will you mentor people? Are there classes? How do people learn how to intentionally use this for the highest good of other humans and their animals? What pathway would you recommend?
Yeah, well, for the EFT tapping, there is professional training. There's different bodies in different countries, and since COVID, it's been online a lot. You can train online, which is really useful for people. So there are lots of options for training. I'm not currently running trainings. I am a trainer, so I can train, and I may do some later in the year, but there's lots of ways, if depending on what people like. Some people they like to study from home, they like to do it at their own pace. There are also probably local groups if people want to experience it in a room with other people. So to Google what is near them. Like I started off doing it for myself before I went professional, but because I've already worked with people, I just wanted to straight away start to bring that in, and it's so good. But even for people who are starting off with animal communication, it's such a marvelous tool. I remember speaking at a conference where we were doing an exercise in starting people to open up to their communication possibilities. And what we did beforehand was I walked them through a round of EFT tapping to help them let go of the monkey mind, of the doubt, of the, what if I can't do this? What if I'm making this up? What if this is wrong? All that stuff that gets in our way of being a clear channel, of being clear in our ability to communicate. And that's another amazing benefit of the tapping. It clears that the monkey mind, the limiting beliefs, the ridiculous things that we tell ourselves that we can't do it, it's not right, it's not going to be right, I'm making it up. And when we can clear that and get A, to the clear space, or B, to the appreciation space, and do it from there, again, it's a game changer.
So I think the big takeaway here is there are lots and lots of resources. Maybe you can find something locally if that's something you're comfortable with, COVID notwithstanding. I happen to love Zoom and on. I was like, so if the internet didn't exist, I probably wouldn't have any friends, because it's just, that's the way that we get around some of these human-made obstacles, like a virus that wants to take over the planet. So, well, not really, but just definitely wants to wake us up. And so there are lots and lots of resources, but first consider simply hopping on over to ferrisjay.com and just taking a free introductory class. Just we all have something that we kind of carry around with us, no matter how clear and open and unencumbered that we strive to be. We're all carrying around certain memories, certain traumas, certain mindsets, certain heavier emotions or life experiences. So pick one of those that doesn't feel overwhelming and just give it a try. And it could be something about your pet. Maybe you are worried about some kind of upcoming procedure, and just give it a try. And just don't forget to, notice at the beginning, like Ferris said, like you just said, the intensity, and then notice again after you've gone through a few rounds under your guidance. Notice, has it shifted? And just play, adopting a playful, curious, wondering state of, what if this is real? What if this can change my life too? What's the worst that can happen? It will maybe be neutral, but in the best case scenario, you'll have a new tool that you can add to your toolkit forever that's very effective. It's very simple, and it can actually help you, especially with a new animal. Let's say you've introduced a new pet into your interspecies family, and you're like, you don't really know each other that well yet, and you're kind of anxious about that. How will they get along with others in the family? And what if they don't like me? And what if I don't know what they want and need, or what does that behavior mean? And we tap to reduce some of that anxiety, and some of the surface ripples that our own anxiety is causing start to subside. And so, so this is it's a really special and unique addition to the Modern Pet Parents Toolkit, along with animal communication. And if you'd like to learn more about animal communication, you can head on over to animallovelanguages.com. Click on Learn with Me. You'll see a whole bunch of free tools, including a free 5-day animal communication camp and a 4-part intuitive pet parent workshop, and of course this podcast where you can re-listen to this episode today. You can access lots of other amazing interviews with really caring, inspiring, cutting edge animal intuitives who are just pushing the envelope with all the brave in their hearts. And I'm just inspired to kind of flow along with the current and be a part of this bigger community that we have created together to help our animal loves by being the very best and brightest human animals we can be. And so please, if you've enjoyed this podcast, if you know a friend or a fellow pet parent who would enjoy learning about EFT tapping, please share this with them and help us reach more people with this valuable tool. Please consider giving us a 5-star or a 50-star review if you feel moved to do that. Leave us a comment if you have questions about EFT or about animal communication. We'd love to hear them, and want to just offer you appreciation for spending a little bit of your valuable daily time with us. So that's all for now. Tune in next week for another amazing special guest, and I send you all my love. And Ferris, again, thank you so much for being a part, for donating your time to share more about EFT tapping and animal communication with us.
Oh, and thank you for inviting me and
absolutely
helping me share this far and wide. I do hope people only takes 5 minutes to watch a video and go through it.
Absolutely.
And you go through that series, and you have the tools for you and the tools for your animals. It's easy and simple. Just try it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's fun. In case we forgot to mention that, it's also a really good time, and you feel better right away. So it's a win-win. Thank you again, Ferris, ferrisjay.com. And look forward to, maybe we could reprise this. We'll see how the lineup unfolds, but delighted to have the opportunity to connect here, and look forward to continuing to learning from you and following your work. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.